our jobs, our way of life, our own freedom, and the freedom of friendly countries around the world would all suffer if control of the world's great oil reserves fell into the hands of that one man, Saddam Hussein. Some people never get the word. The fight isn't about oil. The fight is about naked aggression that will not stand.
If you want to sum it up in one word, it's jobs.
Since the start of the Gulf crisis, Americans and the world have heard a variety of reasons for supporting the U.S. military buildup in the Gulf. But polls show it's not working. And as the president leaves tonight on yet another round of diplomatic moves, the world considers those mixed messages.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington with the latest on the Gulf crisis, Ted Koppel.
Most wars would very likely never take place if those with the power to start them were required first to draw up a fairly simple balance sheet. On one side of the ledger, the projected cost in lives and treasure of fighting the war. On the other side, the cost of not fighting. The problem, of course, lies in the lack of precision that can be applied to either projection. Prophecy is not a gift with which many leaders are equipped, but an informed estimate would do. What so many people in this country are struggling to understand these days is just how badly the U.S. national interest would be damaged if Saddam Hussein is not compelled to withdraw his forces from Kuwait. How much of an impact would it have on the world economy and on the U.S. economy in particular? How intimidated would the other Gulf nations be if Saddam emerges unchastened, a stronger and more dangerous hero? Is it, finally, a question of avoiding war altogether, or simply deferring it to another time when conditions might be even more favorable to Saddam? It is for his failure to provide clear answers to those questions that President Bush is most often faulted these days. Here's a report from Nightline correspondent Jackie Judd.
In the beginning, there was preserving the American way. That's how President Bush first explained why American troops were being sent to the Persian Gulf.
Our jobs, our way of life, our own freedom, and the freedom of friendly countries around the world would all suffer if control of the world's great oil reserves fell into the hands of that one man, Saddam Hussein.
And the nation agreed. In August, when there was a feverish intensity about the situation, 75% of those polled approved of Mr. Bush's crisis management. In September, even more did, 78%. But by October, the approval rating fell to 64%. And the president had shifted his reasoning for the U.S. presence.
The fight isn't about oil. The fight is about naked aggression that will not stand.
A week later, there was a new rationale.
We're dealing with Hitler revisited, a totalitarianism and a brutality that is naked and unprecedented in modern times. And that must not stand.
In early November, the approval rating hadn't moved much. The president, meanwhile, had moved to another line of reasoning to explain why he was sending in more troops and changing what was a defensive force into an offensive one.
The restoration of the security and stability in the Persian Gulf region clearly relates to the world's economic interest.
And 5 days later, yet another spin, this one from the Secretary of State.
If you want to sum it up in one word, it's jobs.
Jobs, oil, naked aggression, Hitler revisited. Which is it? Or is it all of the above? The more reasons the administration offers, the more dissatisfied many Americans are becoming. The most recent ABC News survey out today shows another drop in the approval rating to 59%. And an increasing number of those asked say they don't have a clear idea why the U.S. is involved. There are other factors aside from Mr. Bush's public statements affecting the polling results. Still, there is a sense on both sides of the political aisle that the president has a serious problem on his hands.
If you want to make an issue out of a Willie Horton or you want to make an issue out of an American flag is one thing. But when you've got the potential of sending tens of thousands of your sons and daughters to their deaths, there's no slogan that's going to work with that.
And this has left the people somewhat confused and everyone able to speculate on both why we are there and the consequences of it.
Why hasn't the president done a better job in preparing America for a potential war? A Democratic critic says it's not in his nature.
George Bush has been a product of the Washington establishment now virtually his entire political career. And to get along here, it's the art of compromise and changing your position to finally get an ultimate goal. And if you're working in the bureaucracy, that works. But if you want to take a country to war, it doesn't work.
The president's cautious backroom style served him well last year when the Soviet bloc was crumbling. He needed mainly to react to events. In the Persian Gulf crisis, he's being asked, as one presidential scholar put it, to be a teacher, not a Pied Piper.
I think, too, the president hasn't taken seriously the business of instructing the people. We're dealing with something very tangible here. War, lives, oil. He doesn't need vision. He needs the gumption to go out there and tell us what it is we are going to be seeking here.
Every time that Mr. Bush speaks about the crisis, his audience is Saddam Hussein, as well as the American public and the international community. Analysts say it's a balancing act Mr. Bush seems not to have mastered.
He has to do a certain amount of public diplomacy. When you do that, you have to be on the one hand, and on the other hand, you have to communicate a credible threat to Saddam. But on the other hand, you don't want to raise the stakes too much and cause a war. So he does look inconsistent because of the necessity of diplomacy.
Is it too late for Mr. Bush to rescue himself from a potential debacle, the possibility of America going to war without the full backing of the public? The administration seems anxious about that question and is trying harder to win more support. Witness the lengthy interview Bush gave to CNN yesterday.
If I haven't done as clear a job as I might on explaining this, then I got to do better in that regard, because I know in my heart of hearts that what we are doing is right.
The president's surrogates were on the job today. His chief of staff, Sununu, and the Secretary of Defense, Cheney, both showed up on local television stations to try to explain American intentions in the Gulf.
We are there for the reasons we've stated with respect to trying to stop Saddam Hussein's aggression, but we're also there because of the energy situation, which makes it a strategically vital part of the world for us. No question about it.
And tonight, the president left for Europe and the Middle East to try to shore up international solidarity.
I think this is a very risky time for this president. All presidents have their risky times, and they are judged in the end on how they survive them.
It was Franklin Roosevelt who said that great presidents are leaders of thought when certain historic ideas need to be clarified. It was Theodore Roosevelt who described the presidency as a bully pulpit. What remains to be seen is how effectively President Bush employs the bully pulpit to become such a leader of thought. This is Jackie Judd for Nightline in Washington.
When we come back, we'll talk with a man who served 2 presidents during times of crisis, McGeorge Bundy. We'll also be joined by Rick Hertzberg, a former presidential speechwriter who was probably all too familiar with the president who had trouble getting his message across, and a veteran observer of the White House, columnist George Will.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by AT&T.
Did you know your small business should have AT&T long distance?
You hear that?
Oh, why? With MCI, we're getting big savings.
But you could get AT&T quality.
You hear that?
We're getting big savings.
But AT&T prices are extremely competitive.
You hear that?
No, we're getting big savings.
Well, for that call from Chicago to Detroit, your big savings is pennies.
That's it?
There's your big savings.
Competitive price. Another AT&T advantage.
When creating the new G20 midsize luxury sedan from Infiniti, these were just a few of the amenities we kept in mind. Seating surfaces that are fitted with leather, a cabin that heightens the level of comfort and stretches the limits of space. Of course, with 16 valves and 140 horsepower, that mind also has an alter ego.
If you're looking for a car that gets great gas mileage, has 4 doors, lots of room for the whole family, then you're looking for the 91 Toyota Corolla. Hi, folks. I'm Dan Walters here at Rivergate Toyota, Middle Tennessee's #1 volume Toyota dealer. And right now, we'll sell you a brand new Toyota Corolla just like this one. Believe it or not, you pay just $90 down, only $209 a month. So even if you live 50, 75, 100 miles away, make that short drive and we'll save you money. Rivergate Toyota, 1520 North Gallatin Road in Madison. You come and see us.
Channel 2 News, on your side, means we're working for you. For Bob Mueller, that involves taking the extra effort to recognize our good neighbors. Staying in touch with the concerns of the community. He's on your side. Bob Mueller, he's one more reason people like you are watching and discovering why Channel 2 News is on your side.
Sunday on This Week with David Brinkley. As the president heads for Saudi Arabia, Secretary of State Baker campaigns against Hussein. Baker from Paris, Sunday.
In 1962, when the Cold War almost became a hot one during the Cuban Missile Crisis, McGeorge Bundy served as Special Assistant for National Security to President John F. Kennedy. He held the same post with Lyndon Johnson during the initial buildup in Vietnam. McGeorge Bundy is now a professor at New York University and joins us from our New York bureau. Rick Hertzberg was the chief speechwriter for President Jimmy Carter. Today, he is the editor of The New Republic. He joins us here in our Washington bureau. Also here in Washington, author and syndicated columnist George Will. Mr. Bundy, when a president contemplates war, he is saying, in effect, that the cost of not going to war is going to be greater than the cost of engaging in military action. What would be, do you think, the cost of not going to war here?
Well, it's not clear at the moment. I think a lot of the trouble that was being reviewed a minute ago in quotations from members of the administration is just in the question whether the administration is or is not telling us that it means to go to war. At the beginning, it did not mean that. In August, when the statements were really very clear and also quite comprehensive, the position that was taken was that economic sanctions, fully enforced with a strong political coalition, would be the right answer. And it was held by the President and the Secretary of State that if we were all patient, and that was their word, this course was the one that would give us a peaceful answer. And the only risk of war in the statements as we had them then were in the possibility that Saddam Hussein would try in some way to upset the enterprise, either by attacking our forces or by trying to break out of the blockade by force.
Are we to conclude then that what has changed is the administration's policy, or was it simply playing for time in the early days?
I think the administration wants to be able to change policy if it thinks it necessary. The President hasn't told us whether he thinks the blockade or the sanctions are really working. What he's most recently said is that he doesn't know. And I think that the President is clearly more distressed month by month by the character and behavior of Saddam Hussein, and I think he's right when he says that that's quite a general reaction. And finally, the administration appears to believe, and indeed tells us, that the clock is ticking and may not be ticking for our side. I don't know exactly what that means.
Let me, if I may, turn to Rick Hertzberg and pose to you a sort of complicated question, and that is whether we are, in fact, asking the right questions. Should we be looking at the answer, that is, whether peaceful pressure can achieve what we want or whether war is what is needed, or have we indeed phrased the questions correctly? What is this all about? What do we hope to achieve? What do we need to achieve?
Well, the President has given us a kind of menu of justifications for what his policy is designed to achieve. And it's not really up to us to ask the questions. It's up to him to give a comprehensible, coherent justification for his policy.
Is what we are dealing with then, George Will, just a failure to communicate lucidly, or is it some ambivalence as to what it is that needs to be achieved?
I think it's ambivalence. The fact is incoherence, and that's what we have here, is not a stylistic defect, it's a substantive failure. Politically, as well as intellectually, but certainly politically, 5 inadequate reasons for being there do not accumulate to one adequate reason in the public mind. And what's really being undermined here, Ted, is the president said we're going to put in place, in effect, punitive deterrence, enough troops to stop the Iraqi armor, and a punitive system of sanctions that should work. Now, the history of sanctions in international affairs and coercing bad nations is not a happy one, but never has there been such a promising case as this one. And never has anyone suggested that 4 or 5 months is an adequate test of these sanctions. So that's, I think, the fundamental puzzle, is why, having put in place sanctions, clearly the people who put them in place are now seeming to lose patience with them before they've been given a fair run.
Rick, is it possible that the ambiguity is deliberate, that in point of fact what George Bush is doing is playing for time here and trying to let the sanctions take hold?
That may be. If he were to go to the people now and make a major address raising the temperature of this whole crisis, he might box himself even further into a corner than he's already done by sending 400,000 troops to the Gulf.
And so your feeling is that the fuzziness could indeed be intentional?
It certainly could. But the White House isn't really acting as if it's intentional. They seem to be scrambling to offer some sort of an explanation.
We'll continue our discussion in a moment.
Call me irresponsible.
Just because the other guy is on the road doesn't mean his mind is. So the superb traction of the Subaru Legacy with 4-wheel drive and anti-lock brakes can be quite a comfort. After all, since the next guy is capable of almost anything, shouldn't the same be true of your next car?
I want to fly in business class. My company only pays for coach, so I fly business class for the price of coach. It's called beating the system. Of course, you can't do it on just any airline.
Now till December 15th, when you buy an unrestricted domestic coach ticket on TWA, you can reserve a confirmed seat in our business class for the price of coach.
You pay for coach, you sit in business class, and it isn't even your birthday.
TWA's business class. We did it first, we do it better.
I don't ask why and I don't ask how. That's because I already know where. Right here.
For Ace Best Buys of the Week, nationally branded products, money-saving prices. Ames Homeowner 7-inch pruners in anvil or bypass style for easy cutting of branches to 1/2 inch. Your choice, only $4.99. Patton's whole room heater plus fan provides instant forced air heat in winter and a personal fan in the summer. Only $18.99. These and other best buys at participating Ace hardware dealers.
Hey, Ace is a place for me.
Nashville Office Interiors. We're dedicated to serving your business and would like to grow with you through the years. Consensus by Hahn. Office environment of limitless flexibility. Whatever your personal needs, our expert consultants can create an affordable Hahn office system, one that can expand as your business grows. Consensus by Hahn. Modulars, a separate dimension, a value solution. Nashville Office Interiors, a Middle Tennessee tradition since 1935.
Our freedoms are eroded when we let down our guard, we in the press, and don't continue to push the limits of freedom. I think we serve the country best when we're pushing all the time up against the institutional barriers.
If there is one policy objective, Mr. Bundy, that the president has made very clear, it is that Saddam Hussein cannot be allowed to emerge from all of this looking like a winner. Would any sort of compromise leave him looking like a winner?
Well, I think you can imagine situations in which we could claim that he had been forced to withdraw, and if subsequently there was some rearrangement of the details of who has what access to which between a newly liberated Kuwait and Iraq, I think myself that would not be a victory for Saddam Hussein. But I do think the problem of making sure that he does not emerge a winner is absolutely central here, because if he does, the whole thing is a desperate failure and should never have been attempted.
What are the consequences of that kind of failure? In other words, if Saddam Hussein is allowed to come out of this thing, let's say with Bubiyan Island, holding on to some of the, or at least partial access to the oil field along the Kuwaiti-Iraqi border, and he remains in power in Iraq, and even somewhere down the road there is some kind of a Middle East conference which takes up the Palestinian issue. What are the consequences of that to the United States?
Well, there is a further consequence, which is that he would presumably, as you describe it, also be free to pursue his avid interest in weapons of mass destruction. And he would clearly be left in place as much the most powerful nation in the Gulf area. And I think we could predict the gravest kind of uncertainty. And either we would be left with very large forces doing nothing in the very difficult climate of the area, or we would be withdrawing them, leaving him the top of the heap.
And what would that mean, George Will, if the United States withdraws without having apparently achieved its stated goals? What would that mean to the United States?
Well, there are those who say it would mean we'd be a diminished force in the world. But now let's see what happens. We're beginning to outline as definitions of success general principles that seem to obligate the United States to an elaborate, complicated, expensive, and dangerous agenda. What happens, say, if Pakistan A gets the bomb and B gets a disagreeable leader? Does the United States then have to decide there's an arms control dimension, to use the somewhat antiseptic phrase now being used about Iraq, that we have to leave the Middle East not only with Saddam Hussein's prestige diminished, but his arsenal diminished? Is the United States, and I think this goes to the heart, Ted, of what's worrying a lot of Americans, is they hear implicit in this an open-ended invitation for the United States to undertake an agenda of world control and world policing far more expensive than we had under the somewhat recent Cold War period.
Well, I think, Rick Hertzberg, one of the things that also troubles a great many Americans is we see, on the one hand, a man like Saddam Hussein patent in the starkest of colors, whereas one of our recent allies of convenience, Syria, has a leader who has shown himself capable of just as much brutality at home as Saddam Hussein. It's a little awkward, isn't it, to describe the one man as being Hitler-like and to strike this alliance of convenience with the other.
Well, it's always destructive to reason to start comparing people to Hitler. There was only one Hitler, and Saddam Hussein is no Hitler. But the whole point of the Bush policy, and I think the strongest selling point that it has, is to create this new order, to a situation in which the Cold War is over and these regional conflicts no longer present a threat of nuclear holocaust, in which Saddam Hussein has invaded and conquered another country. This is not an internal affair of Iraq's. In that situation in which the entire world is in favor of doing something about this, if the world shows itself to be helpless in that situation, that's going to be a very serious problem.
We'll take a break. When we come back, perhaps some counsel for the president, since it's free and since we've got a couple of minutes to spare, on what tactics he should pursue in making his message more clear. Back in a moment.
Who's presenting tomorrow anyway?
The face.
Uh-oh.
Face. Somebody better make the type bigger.
By bit, putting it together.
I think you can use my latest PR photo.
Are we scanning in his latest PR photo?
Every moment makes a contribution. Every detail plays a part. Just the vision's no solution. It all depends on execution.
Precise. They've been very precise.
Look at the lighting.
This is actually not bad at all.
They're smiling.
They're sold.
For documents that cut through, motivate, and persuade, nobody puts it together like Xerox.
Good morning. Welcome. Turn to the map on.
You gotta admit, he is good looking.
Printing, copying, scanning, publishing. Xerox, the document company.
A new high-output 4-liter engine. Anti-lock brakes. And exclusive shift-on-the-fly, full-time 4-wheel drive. Make Jeep Cherokee the ultimate vehicle for the hustle and bustle of everyday life.
Save up to $2,500 on 1990 Cherokees or get 50th anniversary discounts on select 91s.
On the next Tennessee Traveler, why would a man sell his house and possessions for this job?
So I blew up a big bunch of jungle balloons just for you, Gary. What do you say about that?
Singing birthday wishes to people in the Nashville area.
Go! A birthday!
Meet a man chasing his dream.
Okay, here's this Doberman, and I'm going up to this strange door. What's going to happen now?
On the Tennessee Traveler, starting Tuesday nights on Channel 2 News Nightside.
Mr. Bundy, it must be much easier to dispense with advice on a television program than it is in the Oval Office. You've done the harder one, now do the easier.
The only trouble here is we have even less time.
Yes.
But my advice to the president would be to take his own advice and be patient, to stay with the sanctions, to stop the military clock, which was started by the suggestion or the proposal to go to 400,000 and stop the rotation of any troops, because that gives no time to wait once you get them there, because they can't stay there alone and unrelieved forever. And finally, warn Saddam Hussein that time is not on his side, but on ours.
Rick Hertzberg, what about some public relations advice if you were writing a speech for him now to clarify the issues?
Well, I'm not sure President Bush is ready to take advice from the guy who's at least partially responsible for Jimmy Carter's reputation for eloquence. But, but I would say that a speech is not going to save him. Ronald Reagan was a great communicator, but he never really asked us anything hard of us. He asked us to cut our taxes. He told us about the invasion of Grenada, these overnight military successes. But George Bush is asking something very, very hard, and it's going to require, even the greatest eloquence may not be enough to sell it. This may not be a communications problem.
All right, George, a word of advice from you.
I'd urge the president to learn from history. Americans are very reluctant warriors. Twice in this century we've declared war. We got into the Second World War and the First World War when each war was more than 2 years old. Both times Americans were directly under attack in some form, on our rights on the sea in the First World War, at Pearl Harbor in the Second World War. Absent a direct threat to the American people, and absent a slogan more understandable to the American people than vacuities about a new world order, the president has no choice but to stick with the program of punitive deterrence and allow the sanctions that he's put into effect and that have been the basis of his justifiable pride in the international coalition to take effect.
George, thank you very much. Hendrik Hertzberg, George Bundy, thank you. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
A presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
America's watching ABC.
Great-looking leather jackets cost a lot?
No, we got them at Burlington Coat Factory.
Those raincoats, those designer coats, that fur, expensive?
No, we got them at Burlington.
Those are terrific jackets. Let me guess.
Right, saved on them all at Burlington.
So you saved on all these coats and jackets at Burlington Coat Factory?
Burlington has more of these at the lowest prices than anybody.
That's why they call it Burlington Coat Factory.
It's America's #1 place to save on coats.
Henry Kitchens and Bath has served the Nashville area since 1969. Our staff of designers and licensed contractors will create for you an affordable custom kitchen featuring wood mold from traditional to contemporary, superb craftsmanship in your choice of cabinetry style, finish, and hardware with the ultimate in countertops by Corian.